Welcome to another deep dive organized by Smart-EDU Hub. Today we're plunging into a topic that, well, it touches almost everyone's daily life, probably more than you realize. Citizen goals online. Think about that last time you needed something from, say, City Hall or some public agency, maybe a permit, or just checking their hours, and you went straight to their website. How often did you end up feeling, well, lost? Or just frustrated, clicking around, not finding what you need? It can feel like a digital maze sometimes, can it? Well, it turns out there's often a pretty deep reason for that, and it goes beyond just, bad design choices. Today, we're unpacking a really interesting paper by Catalin Vrabie. It looks at exactly what we as citizens are trying to do when we land on a public institution's website. So our mission today is to explore why understanding these goals is, well, absolutely crucial for web designers, and how that understanding could really transform your online experience with public services. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here, I think, is that this paper gets right to the core of what a public institution website should be doing or, what it could do. It's really about moving beyond just, like, having an online presence, which, let's be honest, a lot of institutions did initially just to tick a box, right? To actually providing real, tangible value to citizens. So Vrabie's work, it really aims to give web designers a much better handle on what people are actually trying to achieve. The idea is they can then create websites that genuinely serve the public, not just, exist online.
Okay, so the paper talks about citizens arriving with a goal, and it emphasizes this isn't like old school marketing where you're just passively receiving a message. Online, you're active, you're doing something.
Yeah.
So what does it really mean for a site to be goal-directed in this public service context? Is it always something super concrete, like filling a form, or can goals be a bit fuzzier?
That's a great question, and yeah, it's key. Mostly, citizens are trying to accomplish something pretty concrete. Could be getting specific info, making a payment, submitting something, checking a status update, And if the website doesn't actually help them do that effectively, well, it leads straight to frustration. And maybe they just give up or call instead. Think about, trying to book a flight online. If the airline's website keeps crashing or it's impossible to navigate, you're not going back, right? Public services. Fundamentally no different in that respect.
Yeah, makes sense.
And this brings us right to a really core concept in web design, user-centered design, or UCD. This whole approach basically flips the script. It puts you, the user, right at the center of the design process, not the institution's org chart or internal jargon.
Oh, okay.
It's all about focusing on the actual tasks users want to perform. And crucially, recognizing that what works for, say, a business travel site is probably not going to work for planning a family vacation site or a city hall site. Different users, different tasks.
So it's less about what the institution wants to tell people and more about what the citizen actually needs to get done.
Precisely. Exactly. And UCD practitioners, they're always striving for usability, which, simply put, is just about how effectively, efficiently, and, satisfyingly a product helps you achieve your specific goals. There are even standards like ISO 9241 that formalize this. They define usability basically in terms of users achieving specified goals. See how user goals are right there, central to the definition?
Right.
And this idea, it also links directly to concepts like customer value, or in this case, citizen value, which comes more from a marketing angle. It's similar to usability, but maybe emphasizes what's called value in use. So the actual value you get from successfully using the website to achieve your goal, not just the website itself existing. Porter, back in 2005, really nailed this for the online world. He defined online value as basically your perceived preference for the website features that help you, or conversely, block you from achieving your goals. His model essentially asks, how well does this website actually let me do what I came here to do? And that perceived value, it's directly influenced by how well the site supports the specific tasks needed to reach those goals, which, comes down to the website's features and functions.
Okay, so that idea of being goal-directed gets even more interesting when the paper talks about who is visiting. It sounds like if you're a first-time visitor versus someone who uses the site regularly, your goal might be quite different, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a key distinction. Most visitors do have pretty specific action-oriented goals, like we said, but the nature of that goal, it can definitely shift. So for instance, a first-time visitor, their main goal might just be evaluation. They're asking themselves, okay, am I in the right place? Does this site even have what I need? Can it help me? Sort of orienting themselves.
Basic reconnaissance.
Exactly. Whereas if someone lands on the site from a very specific search result, maybe they clicked a direct link, or if they're a repeat visitor who knows the ropes a bit, Their goal is much more likely to be functional and specific, like, I need to find the application form for X, or I need the contact details for this specific department, maybe, a law firm looking up detailed regulations for building documentation. Very targeted.
So it's not just that you have a goal, but the kind of goal and maybe how it fits into a bigger picture, like a larger project you're working on.
Precisely. Yeah, the paper also points out that goals often exist in a hierarchy. You've got these sort of abstract, high-level goals, like the example building a house. It's a big, complex thing.
Right.
You don't just achieve that in one go online. You break it down into smaller, specific, action-oriented sub-goals. Like, okay, first step, find the right city department website. Then find the right section or person within that department. Then understand the forms needed. This kind of hierarchical breakdown. It helps turn these big, complex problems into smaller, more manageable online tasks.
Yep.
And just like goals, tasks themselves can be hierarchical too. Breaking down a big task like apply for permit into smaller subtasks like find form, fill form, gather documents, submit form. This breakdown is super important for designers because it helps them pinpoint the exact website features required. Like, oh, users need to look up lots of specific case files. Okay, we definitely need a robust, searchable database built into the site.
That makes sense. Which brings us to the research itself. This paper isn't just theoretical ideas. They actually did some research.
Yeah.
How did Catalin Vrabie's team go about figuring out these citizen goals in the, real world?
Yeah, this is where it gets really practical. The key question driving their research was essentially, how can we actually increase citizens' interest in using these public institution websites more effectively? So to get at this, Vrabie's team put together a focus group, 50 people, and they made sure it was a diverse group, different ages, different backgrounds, different jobs. The participants include, 20 students, 4 doctors, 12 teachers from both high school and university levels, 8 public sector employees, and 6 people working in private companies.
Right.
A real mix.
Yeah, quite broad.
And the method was pretty straightforward. They asked these participants open-ended questions and, importantly, had them actually talk about and present their own goals when they try to interact with the various real public institutions online.
And what kinds of institutions did they look at? Was it just city halls or?
Oh, no, it was very broad. They covered a wide spectrum. Everything from cultural venues like the Bucharest National Theater and the National Opera House in Bucharest to city administrations like Bucharest City Hall and Constanta City Hall.
Yeah.
Then also public hospitals, Bucharest Emergency Hospital, Fundeni Hospitals were examples, and even public universities like the Bucharest University and the Bucharest Academy of Economic Studies, plus some tourism-related sites too, like the official Romania tourism site and a Bucharest guide site.
Wow. Okay, so a really wide range of public-facing online services.
Exactly. And for each website they looked at, the focus group participants evaluated key elements. Things like, is the design attractive? How easy is it to navigate, to browse around? Does it clearly present information about the online services it actually offers? They used a simple 1 to 5 rating scale, where 1 was, very bad. Think unprofessional design, confusing navigation, maybe needing more than 4 clicks just to find basic info, or just lacking essential stuff like maps or contact details.
Right.
And a 5 meant very good. So professional look and feel, dynamic, intuitive navigation, information is rich, easy to find, that sort of thing.
So they were really trying to quantify that user experience, but tie it back directly to whether people could achieve their goals.
Yeah.
It sounds straightforward to understand goals, but the paper does point out it's not always that easy, especially depending on the type of public institution.
That's exactly right, and it's a really critical point. For some institutions, the nature of their activity makes the primary user goals pretty obvious. Take a national theater. A huge chunk of visitors are clearly there to find out what shows are on and buy tickets. That's the main goal. But even there, other goals exist, right? Maybe someone needs to return tickets or track lost tickets or find out about next season's cast.
For sure. Secondary goals.
Exactly. The real challenge often comes with institutions where the citizen goals aren't as immediately obvious or maybe not as direct. Think about, say, national-level agencies. Often their primary audience isn't individual citizens directly, but maybe other government bodies or large businesses.
Right.
So their websites might just contain very basic info location, an organizational chart, maybe some high-level reports. And this creates an inherent mismatch if a regular citizen lands there expecting to, apply for something specific. The paper kind of notes that while these agencies should have websites, they really need to think hard about what would actually motivate a citizen visit if they want to provide real value beyond just existing.
Okay, that makes sense. What about hospitals? You mentioned them earlier.
Yeah, Public hospitals are another interesting case. Many have websites, of course, but they often get relatively low traffic compared to, say, a city hall site. Why? Because there often aren't that many obvious, compelling online goals that prompt regular citizen visits. Beyond maybe looking up visiting hours, finding a phone number for a specific department, or perhaps directions. It's not like you're typically going there to, fill out complex application forms online on a regular basis.
So it's almost like the website is built for the institution's needs or structure, but it's speaking a completely different language than the citizen who arrives with a specific problem or task.
Yeah.
How do designers even begin to bridge that gap, especially since, as you said, needs can change over time?
That's where a really helpful framework comes into play, one the paper discusses. It's called the Citizen Services Life Cycle, which Baltack proposed back in 2008. This framework essentially helps designers think about how citizen needs, and therefore their online goals, evolve throughout their interaction with a public service. It breaks it down into three main stages.
Okay, what are they?
So first is the requirements stage. This is when citizens are right at the beginning. They're figuring out their needs, making decisions. So their online goals here are mainly about acquiring information.
Like learning what the service is.
Exactly. Learning about the institution, what services it offers, maybe judging if it's the right place for them. If you're designing, say, a new website for applying for small business grants, at this stage, your focus needs to be crystal clear information about eligibility, what the grant covers, how to even start.
Got it. Stage 1, information gathering. What's next?
Second is the interaction stage. Okay, now the citizen knows what they want. Their goal shifts to actively doing something. Selecting the service, maybe paying for it, delivering documents, filling out the application. They're using the web to actually facilitate the process.
So for that grant website, this is where the online application form lives.
Precisely. This is where you need intuitive forms, maybe secure payment portals if there are fees, clear instructions on uploading documents, confirmation messages, all that transactional stuff.
Makes sense. And the third stage?
Finally, there's the ownership stage. This usually involves citizens who've already interacted, they've submitted the application or received the service, and now maybe they've hit a snag or they need a follow-up.
Like checking the status or reporting a problem.
Exactly. Their goal now is often about finding solutions. Tracking their grant application status, finding out who to contact with a question, maybe making a complaint, or getting technical support if the online service isn't working right. So for our grant site, this means you absolutely need a robust FAQ section, clear contact information, maybe application tracking, perhaps even a live chat support feature.
That life cycle idea is really powerful because it shows that even a perfectly designed site for stage 2, the interaction stage, might be totally useless if someone is in stage 1 or 3 if it doesn't match what you need to do right now.
Exactly. It has to support the user across their entire journey.
So, pulling this all together, what does this really mean for public institutions? And for us as citizens trying to navigate these online services, it really sounds like there's often a pretty big disconnect that Vrabie's paper is highlighting.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, one of the key conclusions from the study, keeping in mind it was focused on Romania, was that public institutions there often develop websites primarily to, comply with laws and regulations.
The compliance box again.
Right. Not necessarily with the primary driver being let's get closer to citizens or let's provide amazing online service. It's often viewed more as a bureaucratic necessity than a strategic service enhancement.
Were there any exceptions?
Interestingly, yes. The study noted that university websites often tended to be, better designed in terms of meeting user goals.
Why would that be?
The likely reason is that universities, even public ones, often operate more like private institutions in some ways. They rely on student fees, they compete for students, so they have a much stronger incentive to provide a good online experience for recruitment, for current student services, for alumni relations. Their customers have more choice.
That makes a lot of sense. So the core issue really is?
The core issue, as the paper really hammers home, is that while pretty much everyone in digital strategy agrees that online behavior is goal-directed, the actual implications of that are often misunderstood or just flat out neglected in the public sector, and the result. A huge number of public institution websites just fail to leverage technology to provide real, substantial value to the citizens they're supposed to serve.
But there's a path forward.
Yes, definitely. The good news is that the field of user-centered design, UCD, has really paved the way here. UCD professionals know how to build goal-oriented websites that actually work for users. And Porter's model of perceived website value, which we talked about, it kind of bridges that gap between marketing ideas of value and the practical UCD methods. It really emphasizes understanding those user goals and the tasks needed to achieve them.
So the practical takeaway for anyone managing these websites is,
It's pretty clear. The more knowledge that e-marketers or web teams have about actual citizen goals, what people are really trying to do, the better chance they have of creating websites that are genuinely valuable. And there are tools to help with this. Things like creating user personas, mapping out user scenarios, doing detailed task analysis. These aren't just for fancy tech companies. They're incredibly useful tools for public sector web teams, too.
that's such a powerful point. It really shifts the focus. It makes you think, doesn't it? Thinking about your own experiences. What's maybe one specific goal you've had recently when visiting a public institution's website that just wasn't well supported? Was it trying to figure out which form you needed? Or pay a simple bill? Or just understand who's responsible for what? And then how might that whole experience have felt different if the website truly seemed to understand why you were there at that specific moment in your journey? Well, that wraps up our deep dive into citizen goals online for today. We've explored how really digging into user objectives, understanding why people visit, is absolutely key to building more effective, truly citizen-centric public service websites, hopefully turning some of that online frustration into, well, efficiency.
Yeah, it seems really clear that the path forward for better online public services lies in genuinely listening to citizens and designing for their actual journey, from that first moment of curiosity all the way through to needing help solving a problem later on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us for this discussion organized by Smart-EDU Hub. We really hope you gained some valuable insights today. And hey, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Smart-EDU Hub channel. That way you'll be the first to know when we release our new deep dives.